sense now. I was a palletizer operator. The palletizer cans were then sent to local vegetable canning factories for filling and sealing with corn, beets, and carrots. He said, I had $2,000 in student loans, and it only took me 10 years to pay them off. My starting salary with Kimberly-Clark was $18,400. I think we probably struggle living on that nowadays. Yep. So, January the 8th, 1979, 40 days from today, 40 years from today, Mark started with Kimberly-Clark. 40 years today. His first engineering manager was Hans Niehammer. And probably only us old folks know Hans. But he was in feminine care engineering. On his first day, he walked me over to the, this is going to be really cool for you young engineers. On his first day, he walked me over to the drafting board in the middle of a room with multiple other drafting boards. I was really impressed with KC because they had electric motor-powered erasers. Whereas in college, I had to use a handheld eraser and an erasing shield on the pencil drawings for machine parts. Personal computers didn't really come along to the mid-'80s. Next span is 1979 to 1981. Worked on feminine care projects in Memphis, which was eventually shut down. Fullerton, California, which was eventually shut down. And New Milford, Connecticut, which was eventually shut down. So he's a little worried there was a trend there. Within the first 6 months of working at KC, he told me that he bought his first sports car, a 1972 Corvette. It had a 350 cubic inch engine, a 4-speed manual transmission, and loud side pipes with no mufflers. It cost $4,800. I wish I still had it today, but more to come about that later. His next time frame that we highlighted was 1981 through 1989. In 1981, I transferred to the KC plant in New Milford, Connecticut, working for David Wood to get the mandatory mill experience. And in case you younger folks don't know what that means, all of us that came up through KC, they didn't really ask you, do you want to go somewhere? They would pick up the phone and say, if you want to keep moving up, here's your next job. It's in Neenah, Wisconsin, or it's wherever. And so, meal experience. Yep. Got to have it. He said, I drove the vet from Neenah to New Milford with all of my belongings in the passenger seat and the little storage area behind the bucket seats. Due to the car payments, I couldn't afford any furniture or any other household niceties. At New Milford, I worked on feminine care machines, diaper machines, and then back to feminine care machines again for the Fold Wrap Bag project. On the last project, Casey actually abandoned their 60-year history of putting Kotex pads in cardboard boxes, and now they started putting them in bags similar to diapers. So, life-changing. In 1982, I met my wife, Valerie, who was from Yorktown Heights, New York, at a country western bar. My other friends, Ron Pike and John Hager, both 1ME, 1EE, we were the only single engineers and went out bar hopping in Brewster, New York, kind of chasing after girls. I met her there. Now, you may have some different stories about that. This is Mark's version.
Okay.
1 month later, the bar burnt down to the ground. It was probably intentional. We were married within 1 year and had Sharon, first child, and Brian, second child, right? And bought a house in New Milford. You know how it goes. The vet had to go, and it got replaced by a van. The car was sold to an electrician at the plant, the vet, and I made a commitment to my wife that I would buy a replacement vet later in life. More to come on that later. 1989 to 2000. After 8 years at New Milford, it was time to move on to a staff job. There were no vacancies at my preferred location of Neenah, Wisconsin. So I transferred to KC Roswell in Georgia and began working in nonwovens engineering. I had a series of team leaders and directors during this time. Some of them were Dennis Vincent, Bill Van Hout, Neil Graper, who is here, Steve Pullen, Gary Holmes, and David Bell. The mid-'80s was the heyday of nonwovens machine expansions at KC. So I was able to work on rebuilds and new machine installations at LaGrange, Lexington, Corinth, Neenah Nonwovens, and Hendersonville, which we all know as the Berkeley plant. Spent a lot of time working with my friend and fellow engineer, Mark Proctor, who is here. He is one of my partners on many projects together. But my most favorite project in nonwovens was putting in the spun bond sheen in Daejeon, South Korea in 1998. So a little bit of travel there, huh? Yep. Then we're moving on to 2000 to 2014. I transferred into KC Healthcare Engineering in 2000 after Gary Reynolds took a position in the KC Tucson office, which left a mechanical engineering opening with healthcare. My manager then was Rose Harden. Thanks, Rose, for being here today. The first project she assigned me to was the temperature therapy thermal pad project for the Magdalena plant in Mexico. And oh, by the way, that didn't stay with Avanos. It came as part of our business now, and it's actually at Nogales 3 now. There were many small projects at the KC healthcare plants in Honduras, Slovakia, in Palmy, Acuna, Nogales, Magdalena, and Hat Yai, Thailand. Some of the most memorable ones, though, between 2006 and 2007, during this time, some team leaders and directors were Gary Holmes, Dave Bell, and Randy Suggs, who is here. Thanks for being here, Randy. One of those projects was the 10-dip line expansion and new steam boiler at SSMT in Hat Yai. And this is the part that I love, because I've heard this story from multiple people, and I didn't really know that Mark caused this.
Uh-oh.
Due to my decision to use coal sourced from Indonesia and Australia for the steam boiler, the local rubber wood mafia got some local villagers together and demonstrated at the plant entrance for several days. They even built an effigy of SS Koo, the plant manager, and burnt him at the stake. All glove production was shut down for 2 to 3 days. All car and truck traffic between Malaysia and Thailand was halted for a day or two until the Thai military broke up the villager demonstration. We had to consent to downgrading the boiler to burn locally sourced latex tree wood chips instead of coal. Our CEO at the time, Tom Falk, was not pleased. Somehow, I was able to keep my job.
Yeah. So I heard, I think, somebody brought it to Tom Falk's attention. He had 3 words. He said, "Just fix it." That's all he said.
Just fix it. All right. 2009. Spent the entire year traveling between Empalme, Mexico, Slovakia, and Jiaxing, China. KC decided to shut down the Empalme and Slovakia plants and open contract manufacturing sites in China. My job was to transfer or sell off all the equipment in Empalme and Slovakia, restore all the rental buildings to their original condition, and start up operations at contract manufacturer GRI in Jiaxing. It was the only time in my life I achieved gold medallion status on Delta Airlines.
2 more plant shutdowns.
Yeah, 2 more. 2010 to 2014. During this time, Robin Panizzi, Jerry Borum, and Deverick Walton all provided leadership to some of the engineering teams. This is the time period when I worked on the never-ending project. Melissa Gaynor, who some of you know, walked into our office one day in 2010. Yes, believe it or not, we actually had individual personal offices back then with a handmade prototype for a new sterile wrap project codenamed Origami. Later on, the product name became Smartphone, as we know today. Melissa said, I needed to get going on the estimated cost for the machine and submit an appropriation as soon as possible, because the patent was about to run out on the current sterile route product made at Lexington. 4 years and about $24 million later, in June 2014, the machine was finally started up at Acuna. During the latter 6 months of 2013, kind of backtracking just a little bit, when I lived at the Holiday Inn at Sheboygan, Wisconsin, I had a lot of time on my hands to pursue the Atlanta Craigslist in search of a replacement C3 Corvette. In early 2014, I made good on my promise to my wife, and I purchased a 1981 C3 Vet from a guy in Madonna, Georgia. But I have found that it is not as easy for me to get in and out of that Vet when I was 23 years old. So I only drive it about once a month. In 2014, Jim Borland became engineering team leader, and thanks for being here, Jim, after the KC spinoff of the healthcare division in November of 2014. I worked on the relocation of the gown machine from LaGrange to Lexington. I also worked with Joe Weber, Nate Harris, Brian Collins, Steve Spencer, and Miles Tompkinson over the past 2 years, primarily working on the Endeavor project, which is a high-speed face mask machine with the BARDA agency in Washington, D.C. Besides the numerous proof of principle trials, the machine builder, Kurt Joel, in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, the highlight of the project was a presentation to the CDC, Department of Defense, and the Emergency Preparedness Agency in Washington, D.C. And then a few months ago, Mark actually I transitioned into the engineering, capital, and packaging and labeling role, and I become Mark's last team leader. What an honor. Mark has consistently demonstrated what think customer, build talent, and make decisions look like to me. His dedication to KC, Halyard, and Owens & Minor family of companies, and his teammates has been excellent. Mark has continued even up to his last days. I figure that I'll probably have to wrestle away from him his computer tomorrow, because he's still working on doing documentation, standard work, and things to help our company go forward. His last days showing our team what dedication, integrity, and an honest approach to business and his teammates, and sustaining all the friendships that you see in this room today, he has developed throughout his career. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you, Tim.